Hey, thanks so much, Ron. And I just want to say, I think, Ron, you had a great lineup today. It was fun. Chris, super enthusiastic about your technology, perspective on networks. There've been a lot of great perspectives today that draw out how multifaceted and complicated it can be to come up with a secure and agile position with respect to technology, especially in modern enterprises. So hopefully in the next few minutes, I can add some value to everything you've heard today and give you some ideas that'll help you, move forward. First of all, I do like to start with Google's story. Before Google was a cloud company, Google was a cloud company. And everything we've done has influenced and created the technology ecosystem that has become what we consider to be cloud today. A lot of people, and sorry, this slide's a little dated. I say we have 9 products with more than 1 billion users each. It's actually 10 products now. And as machine learning emerged, we reinvented all of our products and continually reinvent them to incorporate machine learning and AI and ML, which is one of the reasons they deliver such an impactful experience. Now, the reason I start with this is, one, it feeds into a story around DevOps and DevSecOps. And second is that Google's position in the market is somewhat unique in that the products we bring to consumers of Google Cloud are products that have been battle tested with billions of users across the globe. So what we're going to do then is kind of follow these topics here: why security matters, our current environment, how Google thinks about security. Then I want to talk to you about how DevOps becomes DevSecOps, because I think a lot of attention over the last probably 7 or 8 years has been given to what people think DevOps is, and now we've started saying DevSecOps. So what does that mean in the evolution of the practices that we develop within our companies? Application modernization approaches, and you'll see how that ties in and where we go. And then where you can start, a number of self-service resources, and then how to reach out for additional details. So why security matters in our current environment. If you just go out and do a Google search, you'll see that just in 2022 so far, the top 10 breaches have cost companies hundreds of millions of dollars and created real disruption and loss for consumers and the marketplace. And like just one example, Ronin, you might remember, it was a staggering number. I think hackers made off with $625 million in cryptocurrency. And not only that, but in 2021, the year before, and I don't know what the numbers are this year. Well, I'm sure we'll get them at some point. But more than 22 billion records were exposed because of data breaches. And several of those data breaches hit big companies that you might think would be able to protect better against that. So security has never been more impactful to consumer and business stakeholders than it is today. So how does Google approach security? How do we think about security? First, I would say that our approach to security absolutely builds into our cloud the practices and the things that have made Google itself secure for our services that serve billions of users. But we extend that out. We actually want to help customers manage their security wherever they are. So whether that's on-prem, whether that's in another cloud, whether that's in Google Cloud, we want you to have a fantastic experience and end up with the confidence that comes from being secure, and also the speed, and we'll talk about a few of the other benefits as we go. Now, I'm going to just kind of zoom past these, but you can see Google's in the top right of the Gartner, Forrester waves here. Gartner has a similar story for us. So whether it's platform or data security, we obviously have a strong story there. And the story is rooted in our kind of cultural philosophy of zero trust. And we built a fantastic zero trust solution, which is beyond trust. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I think it's helpful to visualize that we don't subscribe to the idea that perimeter security is enough. In other words, as long as I have a good firewall around the edge, I can let application developers do what they want and trust that the applications will be secure. Instead, we say we want to make sure that our hardware infrastructure is secure, that the way we deploy our services is secure, the way we store our data, identity, internet communication, operational and device security. So all of these things matter, and protecting each level is it's an inherent part of DevSecOps. So, and this is another thing you may or may not know, Google is actually quite a big silicon company. We have our tensor processing units, which are state-of-the-art for machine learning and so on. One thing that you might not know is that every single server in our data centers is purpose-built on top of a fantastic network, fantastic storage and other things, and even down to a custom Titan silicon chip that provides hardware root of trust for every bit of compute that we use ourselves or that we allow our customers to use through Google Cloud. So in other words, it's more than just software layers protecting you. It's actual hardware silicon that we developed in-house based on our own security practices. Another thing that is a really important part of Google's security story is our network. Now, our top of the line, whatever you, I sometimes wonder how to refer to this, like tier 1 or whatever. I'm not a networking guy. What I know is that we have more dedicated fiber cables running across continents, running across oceans than just about anyone else. And it's that fiber experience and that control over the network that keeps your data from having to bounce around between ISPs. So in other words, once you hit one of our points of presence, you can be assured that all of the security that protects Google's data is protecting that network where your data goes. And it also gives you a fantastic fast network experience across the world. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Chronicle. Those of you following Google Next, and if you're not, go look it up. It's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We announced some new things around our Chronicle security, which should be of interest to anybody in any enterprise. We also recently completed our acquisition of Mandiant. And so from a security posture, not only have we developed our own silicon, our own practices, bringing zero trust to the world and so on, we're also investing in tools that span all clouds, on-premise, and other technology footprints. And this acquisition of Mandiant is one that is a strong signal to the market of our commitment to security. Okay. So now this is the part of the talk that I think everybody's waiting for, how DevOps becomes DevSecOps. So first of all, I think hopefully this is old news. Everybody's like, yeah, I've heard this a million times. We love DevOps because of the velocity, the reliability, and the shared ownership that it brings to organizations. So as a culture, DevOps is something that hopefully delivers these results. So what does that mean then if we're moving from DevOps into DevSecOps? So first off, if you haven't seen this, go look it up. I've got a link here at the bottom, and like Ron mentioned, this material is going to be available to you after this call. But DORA is our research and assessment arm dedicated to DevOps specifically in the enterprise. And so we've got 7 years of research now with reports each year that we publish from over 32,000 professionals worldwide saying, how is what do you do? How do you practice DevOps in the enterprise? And this is a pretty standard format. So, you might have questions like, on my team, information is actively sought. And then the professional taking this survey as part of the research will choose something between strongly disagree to strongly agree. So information about, are messengers punished when they deliver news of failures or other bad news? On my team, responsibilities are shared. So these are the types of questions we ask. And what we get to is not only a research-based perspective on how DevOps is being practiced in the enterprise today, but also a view into the culture of organizations. And the Westrum model for thinking about culture in organizations is going to be really helpful here in a minute, and you'll see why. And the spectrum from pathological or power-oriented to bureaucratic or rule-oriented, and then moving into generative or performance-oriented cultures. And so what I want you to see is that the move in culture from pathological or bureaucratic toward generative actually makes available to that company certain practices that lead to better security. So not only does this help you deliver software faster or deliver value to your customers faster, it also enables you to adopt security measures faster and keep yourself protected. So in 2022, we actually added to our research questionnaire questions about supply chain level artifacts for software, which is referred to as SALSA, and the NIST Secure Software Development Framework, or SSDF. So what's interesting is some of the early observations from the questions around SALSA and SSDF say that adoption has already begun. So congratulations, good job. I think this is really important to acknowledge that as a community, I think everybody is either acknowledging, yeah, this is important, or they're getting scared into giving attention to these security frameworks. So if you haven't yet, start. You know where they are. They're out there. They're public. There's lots of information that can help you start to adopt them. But the good news is adoption has already started. Healthier cultures have a head start. Now, this is what's really important, as I was talking about moving toward that generative side and away from the pathological or bureaucratic models of culture. Organizational culture is a primary driver of software development practices, with higher trust, blameless cultures being more likely to establish SALSA and SSDF practices than lower trust cultures. And some of this just goes back to human nature. For example, if you look at any technology initiative, it's an iterative process. And if people feel like the first failures are going to be punished, they are going to be less likely to lean into them. So you need to establish an environment or a culture where people feel like they have the room to figure out what SALSA and SSDF mean in that technology space. There's a key integration point, and that is CI/CD. And we're going to talk more about CI/CD in a minute. And then there are some unexpected benefits. For example, reduced burnout. And I think a lot of companies are facing burnout right now in unexpected ways. So this is something, just improving your security posture actually makes it easier for your employers to show up, or your employees to show up and deliver better security, better features, and more value to your customers. I said I was going to talk about CI/CD, and it turns out that CI/CD is the biggest predictor of strong security practices. And one reason we say that from the research is that of the people who are already implementing SSDF and SALSA, they were 63% of those respondents said that their CI/CD systems are very or completely established. And this aligns with previous research that we had published, that most organizations implement application security scanning as part of their CI/CD process. So in other words, if you're looking at SALSA and SSDF and asking yourself, okay, how do I incorporate these best practices and these processes into what we do as a technology provider? Without CI/CD, you have to find someone to do it. You have to find some way to track it. And it turns out that that's a really heavy lift. So moving towards CI/CD is one of the biggest predictors of implementing strong security practices. So DevOps becomes DevSecOps as you build security into delivery. Now, you can do this without CI/CD, but what we're seeing is that a lot of companies don't, because the lift is just too heavy. Okay, so that brings me to application modernization approaches. In other words, if you're saying, if what I'm saying, I'm arguing that CI/CD and automation make it more natural to incorporate security in, then how can we modernize our applications in a way that they fit into a continuous integration and continuous delivery framework? So first off, and this is an interesting prediction by Gartner. They're saying that last year, 40% of new initiatives were cloud native. But by 2025, so that's just 2 years from now, they're predicting that 95% will be cloud native. Now that matters, and there are a lot of reasons for it that I don't have time to get into, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a minute. Just migrating to the cloud doesn't mean you get more flexibility. It doesn't mean that you get more security. You need to move into the technologies and the mindsets that cloud makes available to you. In other words, you have to change the way you manage your technology stack, the talent, and the development process. So one program we have at Google, so this would be something to reach out and talk to me about, is what we call our Cloud Application Modernization Program, or CAMP. And this is a formal process where we help you go iteratively through the process of assess, analyze, plan and execute, and measure and iterate. So that we can go in and help you modernize your applications, meeting you where you are right now, showing you the future and figuring out how to get there together. Now, in addition to that, we have made so many investments in serverless technology. One reason is that we simply couldn't have grown as quickly as we've grown to multiple services with billions of users if we didn't have a serverless base for that. The other reason, though, is that from a serverless perspective, we get the security that we need. In other words, we find that we can respond to security requirements quicker and more effectively with serverless technologies. And we're not new to serverless. Some of you might remember that we introduced App Engine back in 2008. Cloud Functions we introduced in 2017, and Cloud Run came along later. And so whether you're focusing on the application, we have multiple generations now of App Engine, Cloud Functions, if you want to focus on a function, and increasingly people want to deliver containers. And there are a lot of benefits, a lot of reasons to do that. And you get the rapid scaling, self-healing, all of the goodness of cloud native, and all of the flexibility of deciding what the business logic should be. In other words, you're free to focus on what matters to the business. So application modernization brings you toward the ideas of what we at Google refer to as shared fate. It's not just a shared responsibility model. We actually tie ourselves to the success of our customers, and it lets you as an enterprise focus on your business. So what can you do right now to build a DevSecOps practice? The first thing I draw your attention to is that we have published extensively lots of materials that can help. We've got lots of O'Reilly books about how we approach software engineering, how we build reliable systems. I've actually personally delivered a number of site reliability workshops to companies in the Houston area, and would be happy to talk to you about that as well. We've got style guides, architecture frameworks. There's so much information that you can lean on to move yourself into a more modern position that will accommodate a better security posture and adoption of these modern security frameworks. A few other things, the DevOps research assessment, DORA, that I talked to you about earlier, there's actually a self-serve quick check that you can take online. So you can just go answer some questions, and it will give you a research-based assessment of where you are and what you can work on next. I'd say read the 2022 report on Accelerate the State of DevOps that came out of our 2022 research. There are a lot of gems in there, a whole section dedicated to security. We at Google believe that open source is great. We create a lot of open source. You heard a lot of talks today about Kubernetes, which Google created and has delivered to the open source community and continue to be the biggest contributor to Kubernetes. So our assured open source software service is a way of delivering open source packages to enterprises in ways that you can audit and ensure that there are no known vulnerabilities in what you've deployed. I talked to you about CAMP. I talked to you about how we can secure other applications. So what I would just say is, when you're ready to get started, connect with me. Let's talk it through. send me an email, cloudadvice@google.com, and I'll leave the story about how I got the email address to another day. But thanks so much for your time, and thanks, Ron, for inviting me to be here.